Hi, and welcome to Jules Voto's Photo Focus. The focus in this video is on my recommendations for putting together a basic 3-lens kit for your Nikon 35mm manual focus film camera. I'm going to talk about a kit for those of you who are on a tight budget, and then one for those who have a little bit more to spend. So let's get started. Of course, the first lens most likely you're going to buy is a 50. And I recommend the 50mm 2.0 Nikkor H. Okay, this was a lens that originally came out with the Nikon F in 1959. It was in production for many years. There's also a multi-coated version. But this is a good basic 50mm lens. You could pick it up fairly inexpensively. You know, I was going to talk about price, but the prices have varied so much lately. But you should be able to get this lens for $50, maybe even less. And sometimes you get a better deal if you buy it with a body. A good thing about this lens is it works really well on a bellows reversed or with extension tubes for close-ups. It works better than the 1.4 in the close-up range. Now, it only focuses down to a little less than 2 feet, but you could add extension tubes and it does a really nice job. As with all these vintage Nikkors, it's extremely well made. You know, the 1.4s aren't made better than the 2.0s. I mean, they're all made to the same height standards, all metal construction, very smooth focus, and these lenses will last literally a lifetime. Okay, so my next recommendation was going to be the 35mm 2.8, which I think is a great lens. This was actually my first wide angle when I first got into photography with my Nikons. And again, construction is the same as with the 52.0. But the reason I am not recommending this one, I mean, I recommend it, but for those of you on a tight budget, I would go with the 28 3.5. And the reason for that is it seems that the 35 2.8, I was recently checking prices, and the prices have gone up a bit on that. Still a great lens. That would be my first choice. But again, if you're a little tight with money, you could do well with the 28 3.5. Not the sharpest lens on the edges, really sharp in the center. Again, very smooth focus. Focuses down to 2 feet. It's a little slow at 3.5, so your view through the finder is going to be a little dark. I would recommend a K-screen, which has the split image in the center and the microprism donut surrounding it. I just did a video on focusing screens, selecting focusing screens, so take a look at that. But this is a great street photography lens. Okay, so let's just look at it here. We're going to look at depth of field. At f8, if you're focused at approximately 10 feet, everything is going to be acceptably sharp from about 6 feet to infinity. So you could throw this on the camera, set your aperture to f8, obviously if light conditions permit, and just shoot away. You don't have to worry about focusing. If you go to f11, you get even more depth of field, and at 11, you go from about 4 feet to infinity. So great walk-around lens. Put a shade on it. It's got a very large front element, and I would use a protective filter and a shade because the front element is very close to the front edge of the lens. Okay, now for something a little longer, portrait lens, short telephoto, I don't know, you want to call it a short, a medium telephoto, the 135 3.5. There's a ton of these available. Again, one of the original lenses for the Nikon F. They are very sharp, but again, it's a 3.5, okay? But a telephoto is easier to focus than a wide angle, of course, so you should have no trouble. With this, I would recommend the J screen or the B screen. Because sometimes with the split, unless you have your eye centered directly over the eyepiece, one half of the rangefinder spot could black out. That could even happen with the 28-3.5, but you don't really need the split with the longer lens. So again, the B or J screen would work great. This lens focuses down to 5 feet, gives you a nice tight head and shoulders portrait. And again, it could also be used for, wildlife that's not too far. But with these 3 lenses, you are going to have a nice, well-rounded kit. Wrong one in the middle. Where's that 50? Okay, and you'll get some good results inexpensively. And again, these lenses are all extremely well made, and I think you'll be happy if you're on a budget with these lenses. Now, let's say you got some more money to spend. Okay, what are my recommendations? Okay, so for your normal lens, the good old 50 1.4. Again, there's a ton of these lenses. You're going to find decent ones under $100. Some are over. The newer versions, this is an AI'd lens, so this will work on the newer cameras. There's AIS versions of this lens. This lens was made from 1962, and there were some changes made in the early 70s. They went to multi-coating, and then they became more compact when they went to AI and AIS. But these lenses were made, got into the 90s. So no trouble finding these. Again, the AI and AIS versions are going to cost you more. It's a 1.4, so it's going to be easier to focus in low light. It's going to give you a brighter view through the viewfinder. Focus is down to 2 feet. Again, the construction is the same as those other lenses I just showed you. All right, so now what about a wide angle? Okay, I like a wide angle that's a little bit faster than 3.5 or 2.8. So I recommend the 35 2.0. This is an AIS version, but there are non-AI and AI versions. There's non-AI versions that are multi-coated. Usually for a wide angle, I would recommend the multi-coated lens because there's more likelihood if you're shooting outdoors, if you're doing landscape type work, there's more of a likelihood that the sun may be somewhere in the frame or just off of the frame, and the multi-coating is going to give you a higher contrast image. This lens stops down to f/22. It focuses to slightly less than a foot. Extremely smooth focus. Now you can see with this AIS version, it's a rubberized focusing ring, but the rest of the construction is all metal. Again, extremely well made, and these AIS or AI lenses will work on the older cameras because they have the coupling prong. Okay, now for something a little longer, for a portrait lens, I'm going to recommend one of the finest lenses Nikon has ever made, or anyone has ever made, and it is the 105 2.5. These lenses, again, came out around the time of the original Nikon F. The older versions have a silver barrel. This portion right here is silver, and I believe so is this. This lens, this newer version of the 105 2.5 came out in the early 70s, around 74, I believe, 73, 74. It focuses a little closer. It was the optical formula was changed a little bit, and it's supposed to be sharper, but the other lens is superb as well. Okay, this lens stops down to f/32, although I don't recommend using 32. There are AI and AIS versions. The AIS version has a built-in lens hood. Extremely sharp. As far as a focusing screen for this, most will work fine. Again, I don't like a rangefinder spot for telephoto lenses, so I would recommend a B or J screen for this. An excellent, excellent portrait lens. I used one of these lenses for years on my Nikon cameras for portraits. Okay, so what if you want to add to the collection, okay? And you got a few more bucks to spend. I would suggest a 24. I just love a 24. I worked for a weekly newspaper for a while and I used the 24 quite a bit. This is the 24 2.8 AIS. Again, this is a lens that came out, I believe, originally in the late 60s, maybe 68. Not positive on that. But this is an AIS version, which is multi-coated. Again, I always recommend the multi-coated if you could find it. Non-AI, there were non-AI multi-coated versions of this that came out 73, 74, and then 77 they went to AI, and a little later AIS. But again, a superb lens, focuses down to a foot. It's a 2.8, so that's nice. And again, with this, you got tremendous depth of field. And so it could work as a street lens, street photography lens, also good as a landscape lens, some interior work. If you're doing some architectural work, it works out great. All right, so what if you want something longer? What's my recommendation? Okay, an absolutely superb lens, the 200 f4. And the 200 f4, this is the AI version. Okay, of course, there's an AIS version. There's also the older version, which is much larger, optically very good. This one focuses a lot closer. This one focuses down to a little less than 7 feet. Yeah, maybe 6.5 feet, almost 7 feet. Has a sliding hood. Okay, not very long, but it does the job. Again, extremely well made. The older version of this lens is, again, much bigger, focuses, I believe, to 10 feet, but they're all optically superb. Compact, I mean, this is really compact for a 200 millimeter lens. Here it is next to the 105, and I'm going to show you how it looks with the older version, because the older version was a lot bigger, but again, optically superb as well. Let me just grab that lens. Had to walk a little bit to get it. All right, so here's the older version. Let's get rid of this 105. Here is the older version. You can see it's bigger, it's fatter, and it focuses to, 10 feet. So I would recommend the AI or AIS version of the 200, okay? But again, optically, these lenses are great. The older version also had a retractable lens hood. All right, and finally, let's say you're the kind of a photographer who likes to do a lot of macro work. Okay, now that 50 f2 will work great for macro work with on a bellows, with extension tubes, reversed. It's a superb lens for that. But even better is a dedicated macro. And the one I recommend is the 55 2.8. Now there's also a 55 3.5, which you're going to be able to pick up for less money. And it's an excellent lens as well. I just like that the 2.8 gives you a little bit brighter view through the viewfinder and is a little easier to focus. And some people, and for a time I did, use this lens as their normal lens if they're not doing low light work. If you're shooting a lot outdoors, it works great as even a walk-around lens, because you then have built in the ability to focus down to like 9 inches, just under 10 inches. And that gets you really close. That gets you to half life size. And then there is an extension tube, a dedicated extension tube for this lens that will get you down to 1:1. So again, an extremely sharp lens, one of Nikon's sharpest lenses, and sharper, I would say, than the 51.4 and the 50 2.0. So I think this lens would give you a complete kit with the 24-2.8, the 35 2.0, 51.4, the 105-2.5, and the 200 f4, and you then have the ability to shoot almost anything. So it gives you a well-rounded kit. Now you don't need all these lenses, of course. Just the 3-lens kit, I think, is excellent for the majority of most photography. Okay, so I know I said this was going to be a video about the basic 3 lenses, but I kind of added 3 more. Again, you don't need those. I would recommend just buying, of course, a 50, a short telephoto, 105 or 135, and then something in the wide angle range, 28 to 35. Now, I'm going to do a future video showing you what to look for when buying these lenses. Okay, how to pick a good one, go over all the things that you should be aware of when purchasing one of these vintage manual focus lenses. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And I will be publishing a new video every Wednesday morning, so stay tuned for that, and I will talk to you next time.